you doing? This is Dwayne Dasher from High Ground Financial Freedom. I have today my brother from another mother, Justin Vance. He's one of my soldiers who served with me in Iraq, Afghanistan, served with me in Hawaii, and Stewart. He's been a part of my life pretty much my whole career. So Vance, for the people that don't know anything about you, go ahead and share.
Yeah, I guess, like you said, we spent most of our career together. I did 22 years in the Army, retired as a battalion. Just kind of, I guess, changed who I am over the years, like everybody does, and just kind of am at a point in my life where all that experience and education and life has just kind of made me who I am.
Excellent, excellent. No, thanks for that. And so I want to start off talking about some things that I saw, and let this evolve however you want it to go. But one thing, when I moved from one unit to the next unit, I was getting ready to be a first sergeant, and I remember you came over with me, and you were overweight, but then I saw that weight just come off of you in a couple of weeks. That is one of the hardest things for people to do, is manage consumption, how much we put into our bodies, calories in, calories out. What was it that you did that helped push through that?
I think just, being young and being athletic, you kind of can eat what you want. And I grew up, a lifetime wrestler. I wrestled from the age of 4 and, until I joined the Army, and you're kind of restricted. And I think what happened was, I finally had some money in my pocket and I was able to eat whatever I want. And I was able to kind of live on my own. I gained all that weight. And I got to a point where, it affected my career, and it was kind of like, do I really want this to define, who I am as a soldier? And the answer to that was no. And then I think I didn't understand calories out. I didn't really understand that you can, you can't outwork the bad diet. And I think once I realized that it was going to, impact my career, I just put my mind to it. And like you said, I think I lost 40 or 50 pounds in 3 months. And, it's not necessarily the healthiest, but I was able to sustain that, and slowly gain good weight back. But it's really just something that I wanted to do. I wanted to be an NCO. I didn't want to get my stripes taken away from me. I really enjoyed being in the Army. I didn't want to, have the consequence of being chaptered out. And then when I finally was able to go to PLDC, I was the distinguished honor graduate and made my way through it. And it all started with that weight loss journey. And I think it's just putting your mind to it and just holding yourself accountable.
Man, that's good stuff. So going back to that, like with your distinguished career, your family and everything, and the rigors of being in the military, when you had the impossible up against you, how did you overcome that?
It's kind of funny. I did my capstone paper at the Sergeant Major Academy on resilience. And I think that my main approach to that was, is resilience something that we're born with, or is it something that you can develop over time? And I think that the answer is somewhere in the middle. And I think for me, I grew up very poor, single mom. A lot of people don't know it, but I never had my own bedroom. My first barracks room was the first time I had a bedroom. I slept on the couch, in the living room. So when everybody was up, I was up, just kind of how I lived. And I think for me, when I want something, I'm not afraid to work hard for it. And I think that develops resilience, because nothing that we want or that's worth anything comes easy. You're never going to get it on the first try. And I think that just the answer to resilience is just being mentally strong. If you want something and you really put your mind to it, you'd be surprised what you're capable of.
Okay. So like when you say the word resilience, I think tough as nails, hardcore. In your own words, what does resilience mean to you?
So I think that's the easy answer, the tough as nails. And not to contradict you, but for every David Goggins that there is in the world, that's a superhuman, 200-mile races, mentally strong, he went through buds 10 times or whatever that story is. That's fantastic. That's resilience. But, how many single mothers battle drug addiction and then have to get clean and go through the court systems to get their kids back? How many dads out there working 2 or 3 shifts to be able to feed their family while he's skipping lunch at work? So resilience is holistic. I think that being tough is relative, but I think that true resilience comes from an end goal and not letting anything get in between it. And that's really what I look at it as resilient, because it's really easy for guys like us, right? We're older now, but at certain points in time, we were amazingly fit. So our knee hurts and we power through, a 10-mile run. It's easy to say I'm resilient. But at the end of the day, we ice our knee and we go back to our nice house. We have a good meal. But what we don't talk about is all of those other struggles that people have to be resilient in. And I think that it all kind of comes to a point of making your mind up and doing whatever it takes to get to your end goal. And for me, that is kind of how I view resilience, and that's kind of the definition of resilience for me.
Man, I love that. Wow. And you're right. We're definitely not spring chickens no more. And going back, this is something that has always impressed me about you. Going back to when we were in Afghanistan, I remember you were on guard duty. You were locked and loaded. You had your weapon. And there's a statement, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And, the state of mind that we were in, Americans in this different area, there were some people who viewed those Afghanistan people as less than. That was not how you viewed them. There were some people who had a different mindset. You viewed them as human beings, how we should view people. But I will say this. You were on guard, and someone spit on you. And you were young. You were a young E4. And someone spit on you. Now, I heard about it. I didn't see it. And I asked, how did he handle himself? They said, hey, he just kept his cool. And for me, no one knows what's going to happen to you until you go through a situation, okay? Let's talk about that, because I think you were resilient way before you even knew what the word resilient meant. But what stopped you from doing damage to that person, and how did you get through that?
That's a really good question. I honestly have never really sat back and thought about it, because in total transparency, as a young kid, as a teenager, man, that would have not been the way that I approach things, and I think that I think that the job itself, like it had meaning. And then, like you said, I had a certain opinion of people, not just from Afghanistan, but the Middle East in general, in all honesty. And then you get there and you kind of see it for what it is. There's 10 or 15% that are really bad people that are the ones causing all the problems. And then you see the rest of the population that are just trying to live their life and rebuild through 40 years of war, whether it was the Soviets, whether it was, the warlords after, or whether it was the U.S. And, I think that for that frustration, I think I understood it even at a young age. That I think the backstory to that was there was a pretty intense fire mission the night before. And I think that those rounds, damaged farm or killed farm animals or something of that nature. And that's why the security was plussed up. That's why I was where I was at. And I was very upset, and there were some very instant and quick, pretty bad thoughts and things that I could have done. But I think I was able to just kind of calm down, and I don't know what benefit would have happened, whether it would have been, just something like putting my hands on them, or whether it be engaging them. But with all of the people that was out there that was frustrated, like I just felt that de-escalating that situation would have been a lot better. And then, not just for those people at the gate, but we had to go and patrol through those villages. We're going to have to shoot again. And I think that my thought was, turn the other cheek, let the Afghan, there wasn't even an Afghan army then. They were just the Afghan security force that worked for the Marines. Let them handle the guy, kind of, drug him off, did whatever. But I think I kind of saw the bigger picture even as a young man. And, I thought if something would have happened, not only would there have been, a dust up at the gate, but what are those second and third order effects? Somebody that might not have let, the Taliban shoot from their farm today would have let him shoot there tomorrow because we roughed up somebody or there was a round fired or whatever the case may be. And I think I was just able to see that bigger picture. And I think that was really the start for me of learning how to control my anger, because I do get a little hot headed. But I think that just being able to be analytical and understand the big picture and cultural differences really, I think it really helped de-escalate that situation.
No, you're right. And I don't think you really understood the impact of how you handled that, because that resonated across the whole firing point all the way back up to the command. They were talking about that. They were discussing that, because when someone shoots a projectile of spit at you, it's an instant. It's not even a full second. And sometimes it's just reacting without even thinking. And thank God you reacted the way you did, because it changed the dynamic of everything. And people looked at us differently after that, in a good way. Okay, so
yeah.
No. And I mean, not just that situation. I mean, false allegations of being racist you've dealt with, where you had to move from people that you trained, moving up very fast in the ranks, and people assuming that you were taken care of or coddled. I mean, you had to deal with that. And I would say that never happened. One thing I always know is that you were always going to call me about stuff, whatever it was, promotions, anything. You kept me on my toes throughout my career, because I said, hey, if one person is going to call me how to do this, how to do that in the military, it was going to be Vance. And so during all of those times, like getting through all of those tough times, again, false allegations, moving, how did you get through it?
It never changed my opinion of myself. And I know that can potentially sound conceited, but nobody can tell me who I am as a person. And if I did something wrong, I for the most part, I accept it. When something goes wrong that's out of my control, and I knew that I was innocent of those charges, I didn't say anything. Believe he accused at the time not allowed to be homosexual, that had all kinds of allegations of things that I discriminated against a certain person. But I think it was just, I knew that I held that person to a high standard, and they didn't like that. And when I moved to the other unit, nothing changed for me. I think that it was 2 or 3 months down the road, and I ended up being a platoon sergeant over there, because once I got there, it wasn't, I talked with the first sergeant at the time, and I know you had talked with him before I moved, but told him, judge me from today on is all I ask of you, and you guys won't be disappointed. And the job was not very glorious. It wasn't what the Gators were doing, and that was hard. But I didn't let anybody tell me who I was, and I conducted myself the way that I viewed myself, and it got me through a lot of those things. And I think that if you're innocent, or you do something for a noble reason, and you can hold your head up, I don't care what anybody says about me, because at the end of the day, there's only one person I'm looking at in the mirror, and when I close my eyes, there's only one mind that I'm talking to, and it's nobody else. And I think that I just kind of I hold that self-value, and when I mess up, I say it, and when I don't, I just move forward.
No, that's good stuff. So to date, with everything that's going on, starting your business, family, what has been your biggest challenge, or your biggest thing that you've had to push out with some resilience? What is the biggest thing you've had to go through?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think most people don't know. I think the elephant in the room is being married for 20 years, and and that ended up in divorce, and I don't see my kids as much anymore. And I think that's the biggest challenge. But at the end of the day, for me, moving forward with life, finding new relationships, being the best that I can for my kids when they're there, and then looking back at that time as not wasted time, but hey, maybe just time spent with the wrong person. I think that opens up a lot of perspective for a lot of people to kind of know that, that shit happens, or that stuff happens, and you just have to move forward. And I think that also goes back to knowing yourself. Like, there's no benefit for my kids, there's no benefit for my business, there's no benefit for my friends or for future relationships if I dwell and hold grudges and act a certain way. So for me, it was all about moving forward and knowing that, nobody's life is perfect, and being able to deal with that. It was probably the most challenging, just because I didn't know anything else from the time I had joined the Army until after. That was literally my whole life. So it was pretty much my whole career. And really, it was just like you kind of lost your identity because it happened, right as I was retiring as well. So I lost my identity as a soldier, then, going through that process, and then, you know, basically starting over and trying to figure out who you are as a person. I think that probably, for me, is probably the hardest challenge that I've had to deal with.
And how did you get through that? I mean, you alluded to some of it, but how did you get through it, or how are you getting through it?
Well, I mean, what I did was I spent a lot of time really just working on finding out who I am. And then I guess that, the right things or the right situations kind of happen when you're not looking for them. And, I met somebody that I enjoy spending time with, and ended up getting into a relationship with somebody after I was ready. I didn't immediately try to go to do those things. And I think that just taking that time, and then, not really looking for a future relationship, but kind of just letting life play out the way that it played out. And then really focusing all of my energy on, starting up the gym, and building up the students, and just teaching jujitsu. I think that just kind of steered me in the right direction. Now I'm at a point where my oldest son lives with me. He works for me at the gym. So I spend able to spend a lot of time with him, which makes up a lot of ground because I was deployed a lot when he was young. And then, I think what I did was I took it, an hour at a time, then a day at a time, then a week at a time. And then just knowing that, there's more stuff out there's life out there to live. And, like I said, not every life is perfect. And once I kind of accepted that, everything just kind of started falling into place.
And that's good. And I applaud you for that, because the world we live in, there are a lot of biases, and we have a polarized mindset. And with social media, the things change, and they turn on a dime. And the way we view things, it's easier said than done. And I'm not saying you're superhuman, but being able to go past that, and for 20 years, and not to stay angry, and to look at the bigger picture, I applaud you for that. And so for the average person, again, I'm not saying you're superhuman, but I have seen you do some things that have blown my mind. In this last situation that you've gone through has really solidified for me, like, this guy is on a different playing field with just hard times. I mean, you take hard times and you just chew it. You eat it, you spit it out, and you just keep moving. And I would have never wished that on you. But again, whatever is put in front of you, whether it's difficult or not, you just take it, grind it up, and you don't hold a grudge, and you just keep moving. So for people who are going through something like this, their resilience is being tested, and times are very tough for them, what would you say to them? How would you tell them to get through it, or what advice would you give them?
So it's humbling to hear you say that, but it's not true. So it has nothing to do with being superhuman. It has nothing to do with being special, because it wasn't me. It was the people around me, and the people that I was able to talk to and tell the same story to 200 times, and would listen to me each time. I talk to you quite a bit. I have, friends that I train with, calling home, talking with, family members, that, people that just listen to you. I think that the thing is if you try to go through things alone, that, and some battles you're going to go through alone, but that doesn't mean you can't reach out and talk about it. If you're having, certain feelings, you got to address them, because if you let them just, stay inside and you keep overthinking, I believe that's when a lot of really negative things happen, especially to veterans. And I think what else I did is I didn't realize how much other people needed me, and not just in life, but whenever I opened the gym, you kind of anticipate getting a bunch of hardcore, MMA guys to come in, and they want to learn to fight. And really, it was the exact opposite. It was, a lot of people that I'd served with over the years, a lot of retired guys that were seeking that tribe. and looking for, a way to stay fit, a way to be with the guys, a place to hang out. And everybody was going through something. And I think that building that gym was more than just about fitness or learning how to do jujitsu or learning how to do MMA. I think that it really was a way to kind of get that motor pool field camaraderie back. And I think that kind of that is the stuff people don't see. And I think that even if you have one person out there that you can talk to, that's the person that you call. And I think that when people say, hey, no matter what time of the day, no matter what you're going through, people mean it. And I think that you don't know how much you mean to people. And I think that when you start having those really dark thoughts or you're going down the wrong path, if you try to do it alone, it's not good. And there's so many of us out here. And like you and I talked about, I wasn't sure if I even wanted to mention the divorce because it's something I'm past. I don't like talking about, but it's important to know that, even successful people, like, I've retired, I work for the state. I work with kids through DHS. I do a lot of stuff. I have the gym set up, but when people meet me, they don't see, hey, hardships that you've had in Afghanistan or issues that you've had as a kid or the things that happened to you recently, whatever. They only see the success. And I think that it's the select few people that you open up, your heart and your mind to, and you really let them in. Those are the people that see the struggle, and nothing builds success like rock bottom. And I think that that's something that people really need to understand, because you don't know who you are until you're faced with challenge. You're comfortable. You come home and, have a pizza and turn on Netflix and laugh a little bit, go to sleep and get up and do it the next day. And you do that for 20 years. Like, you might feel happy, but you really don't know who you are. You're just kind of going through the motions. And then you get to something that's just turns your life upside down. I think that you really learn who you are, one, through yourself, but two, through the people that are closest to you. Because you really realize how people view you and how valuable you are. And it doesn't matter if it could be your mama. There's somebody out there that's going to answer the phone, that's going to talk to you when you're going through those things. And if you're not capitalizing on that, you're fighting an uphill battle. And that's my biggest thing, is just being open. If it hurts, you got to talk about it. You got to, and really face it head on. Why does it hurt? What is this issue? Why am I struggling? And that's really what gets you through it.
No, man. So the takeaway is, don't try to do it alone. Don't go at it alone. Lean on someone.
Yep.
And I think that,
Never. Exactly. And I think especially being veterans, like we get out and I love my day job that I have, but very, very nice people, but we have nothing in common. My background and their background is completely different. And it's very hard to set back and be able to talk about, hard times in Afghanistan or an issue we had, and because they can't fathom, they just don't get it. So reaching out to those people, and it doesn't matter if you served with them or not, just like-minded people. And I also recommend, the people that generally are going to say something that you don't want to hear are probably the people that you need to talk to first, because I feel like my best friends were said some of the things that I didn't really like in the beginning. But then as you set back, you're like, man, they were the only people that were honest with me. And I think that's, it doesn't have to be military related. I think that it's easy to say, hey, look, find a veteran or find somebody who served or whatnot. But really, if you're not a veteran or whatever, find like-minded people. If you played football growing up, and you find somebody that you had something in common with, and really just try to get to the people that are going to be honest with you. And it makes a lot of difference.
no, I appreciate that, and I apologize for the alarm right there. That sound, but no, I appreciate the gems, man. And like you say, you don't know who you are. You don't know your character until you are tested, and it's okay to say, again, you're not superhuman, but you might be a little superhuman. It's okay to say that, because you have done a lot, you have sacrificed a lot, you have gone through a lot, and you have achieved greatness through a lot of hardship, and it's okay. And I definitely appreciate the gems. I appreciate your time, brother, and I'm looking forward to talking to you some more in the future. So with that,
Absolutely.
what is the last thing you want people to know about Justin Vance?
Oh man, I think the number one thing is I'm just like everybody else. I have ups, got downs, and then I think that my thing is for me. The older I get, the more I realize that, man, we're all the same. We are all one. So it doesn't matter your age, doesn't matter your race, doesn't matter your gender. None of that stuff matters. If you sit down and you engage and you talk to people, like the more that I live life, the more I realize we are all just the same, and that life's worth living. And I think I figured that out, and I think that that's really how I want to go about the rest of my life. I want to just be open and realize that it's all just it's one big roller coaster, and all of us are just standing in line waiting to get on it.
Man, I like that. I like that. Appreciate the gems, man. Love it. Love the takeaways that you share. Lean on somebody if you need help. That's one of the biggest things I'm hearing you say, and appreciate you. Appreciate, and it's been a joy watching you grind through your career, and I look forward to seeing you doing a lot more things, brother.
I appreciate it.
All right, thank you for your time.